Walls of ice Dominic Blackwood surveyed the sprawling lobby of the Celestial Grand from behind tinted designer glasses. At 42, he'd built Blackwood Hospitality Group into a billion-dollar empire spanning 5 continents, with 37 luxury properties that defined modern elegance. Today's surprise inspection at his Seattle flagship was going precisely as expected. Staff scrambling, managers hovering nervously, and the distinct scent of fresh paint suggesting hasty touch-ups before his arrival. "The East Wing renovations are behind schedule," he stated flatly to his assistant Vivian, who nodded and tapped rapidly on her tablet. "I'll arrange penalties as outlined in Section 7.3 of the contract," she replied without looking up. Dominic nodded once. Penalties were standard. Expectations were clear. Business functioned best when emotions remained firmly outside the equation, a philosophy that had served him well since Jessica had left him for his former business partner 15 years ago, taking half his initial investors with her. "Mr. Blackwood," the hotel manager interrupted, perspiration beading his forehead. "Would you like to see the new community engagement initiative? It's generating considerable positive press." Dominic checked his watch. 2 minutes. The manager led him through the atrium toward the hotel's connection to the public waterfront. Through the glass doors, Dominic spotted a small gathering on the boardwalk, children seated in a semicircle around a woman with auburn hair tied in a loose braid. She was gesturing toward the water, speaking animatedly while the children watched, captivated. "Local schools visit weekly for art and environmental education," the manager explained. "The instructor, Ms. James, has a unique approach that's garnered attention from, what's the ROI?" Dominic interrupted. The manager blinked. "Well, beyond goodwill, bookings from participating families have increased 17%, and a burst of laughter from outside drew Dominic's attention. The woman, Ms. James, was smiling as she handed out sketchbooks to the children. Something about her expression seemed so genuine that it momentarily caught him off guard. "I'll observe," he decided abruptly, moving toward the doors before his staff could react. Outside, the October air carried the crisp scent of salt water. The children were sketching the harbor view while the woman moved among them, offering quiet encouragement. She wore practical clothes, jeans, boots, and a green sweater that complemented her hazel eyes. Nothing about her suggested awareness of Blackwood Hospitality's CEO approaching. "Excuse me," he said. His tone clipped. She turned, and for a fraction of a second, he expected the familiar flash of recognition, followed by the practiced smile he encountered from those hoping to leverage an introduction. Instead, her expression remained unchanged, warm, patient, and entirely focused on the moment. "I'm in the middle of a lesson," she said pleasantly. "Could you give us about 10 minutes? Then I'll be happy to help you." Dominic stared, momentarily speechless. People didn't ask Dominic Blackwood to wait. "I own this property," he stated. "Ah," she nodded, recognition finally dawning. "Mr. Blackwood, the children are learning perspective drawing using your beautiful harbor view. Would you like to see their work?" Before he could decline, she handed him a child's sketchbook. The drawing was rudimentary but showed promise, the curve of the bay captured with surprising accuracy. "Chloe's grandmother is battling cancer," the woman explained quietly. "Art helps her process difficult emotions. Your property's partnership with our program provides a safe space for these kids." Something uncomfortable shifted in Dominic's chest. "And you are?" "Rosalie James," she answered, offering her hand. "Art therapist and environmental educator." Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine, not calculating, not fearful, not ambitious, just present. When was the last time someone had looked at him and simply seen a person rather than a fortune? "The program cost my hotel money," he said, testing her. Rosalie's smile deepened slightly, reaching her eyes. "Everything worthwhile has a cost, Mr. Blackwood, but not everything valuable can be measured on a spreadsheet." The audacity of her response should have irritated him. Instead, he found himself lingering, watching as she returned to her students. Long after he'd returned to his meetings and performance reviews, that smile, honest and unaffected, remained imprinted in his thoughts like a splash of color against the monochrome of his carefully controlled world. embers stirring. 3 weeks after his initial inspection, Dominic found himself back at the Celestial Grand, ostensibly to review the community program's financial impact. At least, that's what he told himself, as he watched Rosalie James from his private office overlooking the boardwalk. Today, she had brought elderly participants from a local retirement home, guiding them through watercolor techniques as they painted the sunset. Her patience seemed infinite, her enthusiasm genuine even with those who struggled. Dominic caught himself smiling, an unfamiliar sensation. "Sir?" Vivian appeared at his door. "The quarterly projections you requested. Schedule a meeting with Ms. James," he said instead, not looking away from the window. "Regarding termination of the program?" Vivian asked, already typing. "Expansion," he corrected, surprising even himself. The meeting was set for Friday afternoon. Dominic arrived early, unusually restless as he waited in the hotel's private dining room. When Rosalie entered, she brought with her a sense of brightness that seemed to transform the space. "Mr. Blackwood," she greeted him, setting down a worn leather messenger bag. "I didn't expect a personal meeting about the program." "Dominic," he corrected, then wondered why he'd offered that familiarity. "Dominic," she repeated, her smile warming her features. "Then I'm Rosalie." He'd prepared a logical proposal about expanding the art program to 5 additional Blackwood properties, complete with projected community impact metrics and press opportunities. Instead, he found himself asking, "Why art therapy?" Rosalie's expression softened. "My father was a shipyard worker who lost his job when I was 12. Depression nearly destroyed him until a community art program gave him purpose again. I saw firsthand how creativity heals." Her honesty disarmed him. "My father built his business on broken promises," Dominic found himself saying. "I vowed never to be vulnerable like him. Yet here you are, supporting a program that has no direct benefit to your bottom line." She observed, "Perhaps I'm reconsidering. What constitutes value?" he admitted. Their conversation extended far beyond the scheduled 30 minutes. Rosalie spoke of her small art studio in a converted boathouse, her volunteer work with veterans, and the book of coastal ecology illustrations she was creating. Dominic shared insights about architectural design that revealed his artistic sensibilities beneath the businessman exterior. When they finally parted, Dominic did something unprecedented. He walked her to her weathered blue Volvo, feeling strangely reluctant for the evening to end. "Would you consider dinner tomorrow?" he asked suddenly. "To discuss the program expansion, of course." Her smile told him she saw through the pretense, but she nodded. "I'd like that." Over the next month, their program discussions evolved into conversations that stretched long into the evening. Dominic found himself sharing parts of his life he'd locked away years ago, his early struggles, his passion for sailing, his secret collection of handcrafted wooden boats. Rosalie listened without judgment, offering insights that made him see his own life through fresh eyes. On a rare, sunny December afternoon, they walked along the private beach behind his cliffside home. Rosalie had kicked off her shoes, laughing as the cold waves chased her across the sand. Dominic watched, mesmerized by her joy in such simple pleasure. "You should try it," she called, her hair whipping in the wind. "I don't do spontaneous," he replied. "Everyone does spontaneous, Dominic. Some just need permission." She extended her hand toward him, a challenge in her eyes. For a moment, he saw his carefully constructed life as it truly was, a fortress built not for success, but from fear. With deliberate movements, he removed his expensive shoes and socks, rolled up his tailored pants, and stepped into the icy water beside her. Her delight at his action warmed something long frozen within him. When she slipped on the wet sand and he caught her, their laughter mingled in the salt air. The kiss that followed wasn't planned or analyzed. It simply was, like the tide meeting the shore. Later, as they sat wrapped in blankets on his deck watching the sunset, Dominic realized with startling clarity that the walls he'd built to protect himself were actually a prison, and Rosalie, with her unassuming warmth, had somehow slipped him the key. "What are you thinking?" she asked, noticing his contemplative silence. "That I've spent 15 years building an empire while forgetting to live in it," he admitted. She took his hand, her touch gentle yet grounding. It's never too late to start. For the first time in years, Dominic Blackwood felt something dangerously close to hope kindling within his carefully guarded heart. Storm warnings by early February, Rosalie had become an unexpected fixture in Dominic's life. His executive team noticed the changes, meetings ending on time, spontaneous approvals for employee wellness initiatives, and most shockingly, actual laughter occasionally echoing from his office. You seem different, observed Gerald Winters, his CFO and oldest associate, during a private moment after a board meeting. I'm still making you money, Dominic replied defensively. Gerald's eyebrows rose. That wasn't a criticism, Dom. It's good to see you. Present. Present. That was Rosalie's influence. She existed fully in each moment, teaching him to notice things he'd long overlooked, the changing light on the water, the satisfaction of creating something with his hands, the pleasure of conversation without agenda. Tonight, he'd planned a surprise. After months of casual dinners and increasingly intimate conversations, he'd reserved the entire rooftop restaurant of the Celestial Grand for a proper date. The space was transformed with thousands of tiny lights and rare winter blooms, the chef preparing a special menu highlighting Rosalie's favorite flavors. But when she arrived, her usual warmth was dimmed. She accepted his greeting kiss distractedly, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. "What's wrong?" he asked as they were seated. She hesitated. "My father's health is declining. His medical bills?" She trailed off, shaking her head. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't burden you with this." "You're not a burden," Dominic said immediately, reaching for her hand. "Let me help." Something flickered across her face, discomfort, perhaps even hurt. "I didn't tell you this to ask for money, Dominic." "I know that," he replied, confusion edging into his voice. "But I have resources. Why wouldn't I use them to help you?" "Because this isn't about solving a problem," she said gently. "Sometimes I just need you to listen, not fix." The concept was foreign to him. In Dominic's world, problems existed to be solved, preferably with efficiency and finality. Emotional support without action seemed insufficient. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed insistently. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. He hadn't spoken to his ex in years. "I need to take this," he said, already standing. Jessica's voice was tense. "Dominic, I'm sorry to call after all this time. There's a situation with Blackwood Properties' original incorporation documents. Alexander is threatening to contest ownership of the first 5 hotels." Alexander, his former friend and business partner who'd left with Jessica, now apparently attempting to claim a piece of his empire. "I'll handle it," he said automatically, his mind already shifting to defense mode. Lawyers, contracts, countermeasures. When he returned to the table, Rosalie recognized the change immediately. "Work emergency?" "Something I need to address," he confirmed, signaling for the check. "I apologize for cutting the evening short." She studied him carefully. "You've completely shut down. I can see it happening, like watching a door close." "This is business," he explained. "It requires focus. And I don't?" The hurt in her voice was unmistakable now. "That's not what I meant. These are separate worlds, Rosalie. They're not separate. They're both parts of you." She gathered her coat. "When you compartmentalize like this, you're not really letting me in." The following weeks brought a growing tension. As Dominic battled Alexander's legal maneuvers, he retreated into familiar patterns, working relentlessly, emotions locked away, vulnerable parts of himself carefully guarded. Calls with Rosalie grew shorter, their connections more superficial. Meanwhile, Rosalie faced her own struggles. Her father was hospitalized, forcing her to reduce her teaching hours. When Dominic sent an anonymous donation to cover medical expenses, she confronted him directly. "You can't just throw money at problems and expect relationships to work," she told him during a rare dinner at his home. "I was trying to help," he countered, frustración evidente. "What's wrong with using my resources?" "The problem isn't your money, Dominic. It's that you're using it to maintain distance. Real intimacy means sharing the messy parts, the fear, the uncertainty." "You're still hiding behind those walls." "My walls have protected me," he said stiffly. Rosalie's eyes filled with tears. "From what?" From caring? From feeling? Is that really living? When he didn't answer, she stood slowly. I care about you too much to watch you retreat back into isolation. When you decide what you really want, safety or connection, you know where to find me. After she left, Dominic stood at his wall of windows overlooking the water. The empty house around him suddenly oppressive in its perfection. Everything was as it should be, controlled, pristine, successful, and utterly hollow. Shattered facades. The legal battle with Alexander consumed March and April, a bitter contest that threatened the foundation of Dominic's empire. His legal team advised settlement, but pride kept him fighting. This company was his life's work, the proof that he'd succeeded where his father had failed. Without Rosalie's warmth in his days, Dominic retreated fully into the cold, calculating persona that had built Blackwood hospitality. Meetings became terse affairs. The community programs continued, but he no longer attended, sending representatives instead. Have you spoken to her? Vivian asked one evening as they reviewed depositions. Dominic looked up sharply. That's not relevant to this case. With respect, sir, everything about you has been relevé.